right. Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
This is good old critical critique and pause on point. Today we're going to be talking about that great thing called cancer.
Mm,
Yeah.
that old dragon.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Like
topic.
cancer and what cancer can teach us. And
we're talking about we're doing our first video, I believe, on Mother's Cuckment.
Speaking of cancer, so it all comes
Whoa.
together.
It all comes together.
it's
Oh,
almost
man.
like we had it planned.
It's gonna take a lot not to devolve into ad homs during this whole thing, but I'll see I'll see what I can
Well,
do.
the thing with Mother's Basement, if we're throwing out our biases right now, he's just so basic. He's not original bone in his body. That's mostly the
Yeah.
problem with him.
Yeah, he. Well, you have to remember he does everything for money. He doesn't really do anything.
Oh, yeah. Everything with the 10 minutes video mark.
See,
For the
it's
friendly
fine to do things for money, but at the same time, it's like, my man, try not to be so basic. Try to activate the neurons of just a few more people.
Yeah. So, but anyway, we're going to see today what cells at work can teach us. The thumbnail is the one says it has the thumbnail for it is sympathy for cancer ?
This was a topic. Now, I watched Cells at Work, so I have experience with this. I quite like Cells at Work, actually. I actually would recommend it. It's a very, very good show. There was a lot of debate because there was a couple of episodes around about the midway point where they talk about they have it's basically a mini arc about cancer, right? And about how cancer is essentially just cells that are defective in the sense that they are reproducing in a way that is not cooperating with the rest of the system of the body. So what will happen is you'll have these cells that will be not coded in the correct way. They go off and do their own thing, and then they start to multiply with their defective code, and that causes more of them to start to propagate themselves, and then that's how you start to get the tumors and that kind of stuff, right? And it talks about that, and the problem that people had with it was that the character that they used for cancer, they gave it kind of this sort of sad backstory type spin. And I think Mother's Basement, I don't want to spoil anything because I reckon Mother's Basement is probably going to get into it, but there was a couple of other YouTubers that put out videos on it, and I think that I think a lot of people just don't really.
That's a weird thing to get upset over.
They don't really understand that when you're thinking about cancer realistically, it's not really the cancer's fault. And I know it sounds bad, right? That sounds like a controversial statement.
Yeah,
but when you actually, well, it's controversial to these people, lolly. when you think about it, it's not the cancer's fault that it was born defective, right? It's not even your fault as a person, right? It's not even the body. It's a thing that happens, and it's actually a thing that happens a lot. And you would be surprised. Like, you have defective cells that get created like probably every nanosecond. The issue is that the issue is the ones that survive long enough to propagate, which they usually don't, because usually your body has. Like, it gets into it in Cells at Work. There are cells in the body specifically made to kill your own cells, right?
Yep. There are systems in the cell that kill themselves before things get worse. And that's not what I assume was.
Right. Oh yeah, that's right. You do sciencey shit, don't you? So you probably know more about. You probably know way more about this.
Apoptosis is what is called when the cell kills itself when it detects a flaw.
Man, you would fucking love Cells at Work.
Yeah.
I actually have a friend that's getting into the medical field that medicine.
Oh, you probably love it. It's
great.
Great.
Yeah, no, he watched that and he was like, some of the stories he has, because I forget exactly what it was. It was something with radiology. Some of the stories he has of like some of the crap that's happened at like his place of work was impressive.
Mm. All right then. So let's get started. I'll control the video.
Yep.
So yeah. So this is I haven't watched Mother's Basement's video because I don't watch Mother's Basement anymore. So this is all fresh to me. So let's see what Mother's Basement's take on Cells at Work is. Starting in 3, 2, 1.
お前はもう死んでいる。何？
Cells at Work is a fascinating anime for a lot of different reasons. At its core, it's an edutainment product that teaches its audience about the biological functions of the human body by
By the way, the platelets are fucking adorable.
Oh yeah, no.
You must protect your platelets. You must drink lots of water. You must stay hydrated to protect the lolly platelets that are inside you.
Yeah. At all times.
At all times, you must.
I will refrain from commenting on the images in my folder related to this show. Just for the audience's sake.
All right, let's keep going.
contextualizing those functions as shonen anime tropes. Not exactly the type of thing you'd typically expect to see topping the charts, yet Cells at Work is one of the best-rated, most-watched shows of the summer season, competing toe-to-toe with shonen manga giants and light novel trash at the top of Crunchyroll's most popular anime.
Trash.
The anime and the manga that it's based on manages to make the dry scientific information that it's presenting fun and really funny without losing its educational value. And while it doesn't have the tightest, most intricate continuity in the world, in fact the anime's been playing episodes completely out of order without anyone missing a beat, its audience has still become quite attached to its charming but thin cast of characters.
I don't really get that criticism, to be honest, because from my perspective, because I haven't read the manga, but like most of the stories are pretty self-contained. Like it's a pretty episodic show where you'll have like, okay, this is the episode on the common cold. This is the episode that is on this function and this function, and like outside of maybe like a few cases where you have like two episode arcs almost, like usually everything is really self-contained, so I don't really think that swapping around the order really matters. So I'm not actually sure why he brought it up in the first place. Like outside of it being, outside of it maybe being like a trivia kind of fact.
I didn't hear any real criticism in it. More of a look what I did. It's still good, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm on edge because it's my space, but I need to be more charitable.
It would actually be, because usually when there's that type of reordering, there's usually a directorial decision behind it, and I'm not sure if the interviews for this show are like existing, but it would actually be kind of neat to see why the director decided to reorder things.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going.
A great deal of the show's success comes down to its brilliant high concept and the well-thought-out metaphors that it uses to build its world of anthropomorphized cells. On a broad level, things like presenting virus-infected cells as zombies are pretty genius, but it gets really impressive when you look at the little details. Like how blood cells deliver oxygen in crates filled with 4 O2 tanks each, when in real life, a blood cell can bind exactly 4 oxygen molecules to 1 molecule of hemoglobin. And our protagonist, a red blood cell who's prone to getting lost in blood vessels, has an ahoge shaped like a defective sickle cell, which flow poorly through the bloodstream due to their...
This is a little bit of speculation. It's also just a anime hair trait.
Yeah, people were speculating about the sickle cell connection, but it's not like it could be true, it could not be true. No, it's just a little. It's just a little thing that it might be good. It might not be good.
It's just also a little bit mean to call her defective.
Well, sickle cells are defective. I mean, just like idiots, sickle cells are defective.
Yep. All right.
If you cut off the ahoge, it dies.
Oh god. All right.
Odd shapes. Mangaka Shimizu Akane clearly has a lot of passion for biology and has done a lot of homework to make sure all the little details are right. Despite the obvious differences between single cells in a body and sentient beings in a city, it's impressive how well the central metaphor of this story tracks. People who have far more medical knowledge than I are already diving deep into how Cells at Work teaches us about the human body, so I'm not going to rehash that discussion here. If you're curious, there's an excellent series of doctor's notes being posted week to week by a med student on Reddit, which I'll link to in the description. No.
There's also a YouTuber, whatever his name. There's a guy who's a medical student, I think, on YouTube, who does a lot of medical videos. Who was doing episode kind of react / talk about things in the episodes, and I found those to be very entertaining. I just don't remember what his name was. I might have to go look it up.
I think I got recommended that. I just kind of
he popped up in my recommended, and I thought, fuck it, I got nothing else to watch.
Well, it would be funny. There are lots of little details, but of course, I think I read one of those Reddit posts, and those went in pretty deep.
Yeah, it'd be interesting stuff. So,
but I also have one note about the mangaka himself. He has Cells at Work. He has Cells at Work Black, which is basically Cells at Work, but that in a body that is old,
in my
obese.
In my body.
It's obese. It smokes. It's sick. Erectile dysfunction. Sexual transmitted diseases. That body is going to die in the next 2 years or so.
Just everything that could possibly go wrong.
Well,
has gone wrong.
alcoholism, the liver isn't really functioning. I said heavy smoker.
Dead platelets as
stress.
far as the eye can see.
Yeah. And
I saw a manga page from that where the platelets were like being trained as child soldiers.
Badass.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I wish we could find that and put that on the screen because it's fucking great.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be funny if the second season was just that and just like upset everyone?
Yeah, mate. The second season, Black. Yeah.
So he made one of the, I think. So he made Cells at Work Black. Then he made one of the, one of those base cells before they come differentiated. So when that little episode, the chapter on the red blood cell before she becomes a proper red blood cell,
right.
It's about those types of cells and how they don't want to work. They want to stay in their pre-differentiated forms when they don't have to do anything. A story about needs.
Yeah.
And I think there's one more about the immune system, but I'm not sure.
Right. But yeah, that's interesting stuff.
Yep.
All right. Let's keep going. Let's see what else Mother Spaceman has for us, because we're taking quite a while to get into kind of the meat.
Yeah.
Right.
What really fascinates me about Cells at Work is how the metaphor tracks in the other direction, and what we can take away from Osmosis Jones without the fart jokes in regards to our own world. The civilization presented in Cells at Work is impressively well thought out and surprisingly believable in how it functions. It's helped to some extent by the fact that everything is based on actual functioning real-world systems, but it can't have been easy to translate the roles and deterministic behavior of simple cells into literally fleshed out sentient humanoids, all without sacrificing either their depth as characters or their educational value as biological models. But while the world of Cells at Work makes sense, it still feels pretty alien compared to our own, especially when you begin looking at those fine details.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Well, I do want to say that Cells at Work presents the body in a very Japanese way, just like Osmosis Jones did it in a very American way.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good
Osmosis
point.
Jones, it's just another shithole city like Detroit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically with a corrupt,
Mayor.
board of governors. Well,
Yeah.
Cells at Work is very bureaucratic with,
Good organization ish.
but no flexibility.
All right, which I think makes sense considering, of course, like the art, both people, like in terms of, like when I say artists, both the creators of each franchise, probably growing up in their respective areas, will draw from their experiences. So
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense. So anyway, let's keep going.
It's based on the human body, the show's fictionalized society ends up being rigidly utilitarian. The anthropomorphized cells all have a designated purpose in keeping the body as a whole alive and functioning, and anything that doesn't fit that purpose is ruthlessly eliminated. That includes bacteria, cells infected by viruses, and as we see in the cancer arc that just wrapped in the anime, sometimes even regular cells that don't function properly. Every character follows a hard...
Any
I find it very interesting how he's framing this.
any cell that doesn't function properly is a threat to the body.
Yeah, I don't see why you would frame it in this way, right? Like,
Even normal cells just get killed because they're too close.
Is he all right like the Danzig?
it's all of these left-wing YouTubers. It's all a conspiracy.
They're all dog whistling at us.
Yeah.
Anything that doesn't work needs to be ruthlessly eliminated.
Oh man, but no, yeah, I find it interesting how he's framing it like that. I don't see because when you think about it in the context of what it is, it's the human body. As you said, Ali, if it's a cell that's not working properly, or it's a cell that it's not like real life where you can have people that don't contribute or don't function in a quote-unquote normal way and everything will still actually like function. Like in the human body, if a cell doesn't do its work and it becomes a tumor, that's a pretty big fucking problem.
Yep.
You know, like you got to stop that shit before it actually happens. Like if they just let the I swear to God, if he tries to make the argument that the germs are immigrants, I swear, I swear, I swear,
I wouldn't go in that direction.
I pray that he does not do that, because, like, it's not a comparison that you can make. You can't make
don't worry, it's not advertiser friendly, so.
Nobody's that retarded.
Yeah, like that's alright, let's keep going.
Coded set of instructions unwaveringly and almost unquestioningly, even when those instructions are ill-advised, something we see in the allergy episode. Some are more effective at following them than others, but by and large, every cell follows their role as a vital component of the body and tirelessly does their part to keep it healthy. And this is kind of obvious, but that's not how the human world functions. Like, not at all. Despite being built...
Of course not.
What is you pointing out the obvious here? Like it's not.
We're 4 minutes in, and I don't know what this video's about.
We haven't even gotten to the cancer bit yet. Like he's mentioned it, but he hasn't actually like presented anything yet. He's just making really weird, like general basic points that are not really interesting or relevant to anything.
No,
the
I
thesis
think
there's no thesis yet.
Here's the thing. Most of the things he said is like, okay, yeah, whatever, I get it, but like, it's taken 4 minutes. Like, start making your point like roughly at 2 minutes. Otherwise, it's just dragging on. Oh wait, no shit. What's the advertiser friendly length? Because we might be like hitting
just over 10 minutes or so.
Okay, that would explain it.
Well, he's at 13 minutes on this video, minus maybe like 2 minutes for Patreon shit, right? So he's probably like just on 10 minutes for actual content. Let's see if I'm right on that prediction actually when we get to the end, like when the Patreon stuff comes up. So yeah, let's see if he actually presents anything.
It's entirely from these tiny organic components that all serve a single purpose. We humans tend to be very, very attached to our sense of personal freedom, of being able to decide how we keep ourselves alive and how we contribute
Western
to the functioning
cultures.
of our society.
More so than others, but that's not universal.
An ecosystem, if we do at all. That's especially true for many of us who live in North America.
Hey.
Twist the context just a little, and a directed, planned society like the one we see in Cells at Work, where people are locked into serving a single purpose assigned by an outside authority for their entire
Don't do
lives,
it.
fill us with an almost innate sense of apprehension and even dread. The world of Psycho-Pass, for example,
didn't
although
do it
not
good.
quite as playful and candy-coated, bears a lot of similarities to Cells at Work's body. And not just because of all the copious bloodshed. Its citizens are assigned jobs right out of school based on their aptitudes and personalities, with a goal of maximizing their contributions to the nation and, purportedly, their happiness. And the systems controlling both societies attempt to preemptively eliminate, or in some cases detain, dangerous contagions, violent criminal tendencies in the case of Psycho-Pass, before they can cause too much damage or spread too far. The
Well,
viruses and
No, the philosophies behind it. Well, Cells at Work doesn't have really a philosophy. It's more of a documentation or a representation of what happens in the body. It doesn't really follow a philosopher. Instead of the way, of course, not to make the point everything is political, but you can frame everything in any way you want. Of course, all the bacteria that come into the body are presented as evil, when they are most of the time, of course, very neutral to the body and more of, oh, there's food here, I'll take some.
Yeah. I don't know why he's even making this comparison. I don't understand. Like, I don't know what is. Okay, so the title of the video is what else can Cells at Work teach us? And so far, he's made pretty obvious statements to anyone that has half a brain, and he's comparing the show to another show, which admittedly, like, it has like one similarity, and that the civil
It's teaching
system.
us that completely planned and ruthless societies work. By the way, got an
Oh, man.
employment intensive.
When I was saying don't do it, I swear to God he was gonna say it's like communism. I swear he was so close.
Is this one also an unironic commie like
He is.
Pedantic?
I don't know if you.
No.
I don't know if you read the giant tweet collage and Reddit post collage that I posted in the chat a couple of days ago. But let's just say Mother's Basement has some very interesting takes when it comes to communism.
but also very basic. There's not very interesting ones. But
He
yes,
seems to flip.
yeah. But what I said, yeah, all the cells, all the bacteria in Cells at Work are evil because they're come into the body. But Psycho-Pass doesn't portray its outsiders of the system as evil. It doesn't show them as parasites. The people
does the opposite, because at the end, like, you know, it is that outside conjecture or it is that outside, you know, quote unquote contagion that inevitably saves their society.
Yeah, so, and I also kind of object to the idea of, you know, a system, the body is a system that preemptively kills cells. No, it only really kills them if they're a threat, or most of the time they kill themselves. So that's something.
And they usually have to be detected by
Yeah.
other cells before that happens.
But
Because I
if what I said before, cells will get killed if they're near an infection. But that's how it is. You kill everything, you kill everything in a radius, and then you'll get the virus too.
Yeah, they
But
kind of have to do they have to do a little bit of a scorched earth policy in terms of that shit.
Yeah, but that isn't done like because it benefits society. That's done because it's easy.
It's the most effective way to keep the body alive. You know?
Well, no, you know, it's the most effective to keep the body alive quickly, and that's
true.
what matters more than a society. And Psycho-Pass is very, you know, you can say a show from a couple of last season now of Kaguya-sama, where you got a rich girl and a poor guy. You can frame it as a class conflict between capitalism class conflict between the poor and the rich. But that isn't really happening in the show. That is not what the show is about. It's not what the show wants to see. What it's trying to present. And while you can make that point, it's rather pointless. And also here, comparing the how the body has evolved these systems to be quick, to be effective, is not comparable to a thought out society in Psycho-Pass.
And the only reason Cells at Work is framing the body in such a way that you would get that idea is because it's just the easiest way to convey, like, the systems, right? It's something that everyone can understand. Okay, we're gonna frame the body as if it was like a city almost, right? Or like a, you know, like it's just one giant city. There are railway, like, you know, like pathways which are the blood vessels. There are buildings which are like the muscle tissue. They have cells that live in them, right?
Yeah,
like that's it's just the easiest way. Like, when you think, like, if we're approaching this from the idea that the show is meant to be educational, and this is a, like, not necessarily a children's show, but it can be used as an educational material, right?
A refresher moment.
A refresher, yeah. It's the easiest way to convey the idea of the human body in a way that's palatable and easy to understand to a general audience. That's kind of where I'm at on it. I think that it's not really to do with, oh, well, it's a commentary on, like, the society and no, it's just that's the easiest way to get the message across.
Yeah.
Right. Let's keep going. Let's see where he goes with it.
Bacteria of Cells at Work happily play the part of cackling Saturday morning cartoon monsters, and we know the kind of damage that diseases like influenza and pneumonia can do, so we don't really pause to empathize with them at all. But if you think about it, the white blood cells and their T-cell allies are playing a very similar role to the enforcers in Psycho-Pass, patrolling the city to detect and kill certain individuals without trial for the crime of existing the way they are. Sometimes, again, even if they don't pose an actual threat. The cedar pollen spores are just these big, dumb, adorable, harmless fat boys that the immune system brutally murders, causing serious collateral damage solely because the guys giving them orders are poorly informed, which is a bit, worrying, even if the problem is played for laughs in this episode. It's a lot less funny.
Why is the problem? It's only a problem if you're related to the real world. But that is not what the show wants you to...
I want to see where he's going with this, because I'm pretty sure the direction is very, very dumb.
Because it's the idea of that episode was allergies, right?
Yeah.
And the idea that the body is hyper reacting to something that probably wouldn't do too much harm to it, but because it's a foreign entity and because it's something that the body has programmed itself to attack, it overextends. And the ending of that episode is actually really funny because the body takes an antihistamine and it's represented as this, like, fucking death android that just starts destroying everything and killing the whole fucking, like, just getting rid of the blockage and getting rid of everything, like, with a chain gun, right? With a Gatling gun. It's great.
What that pill is basically doing is just killing all the immune cells so they stop.
So what Cells at Work can teach us about neo-reactionaries is the point he's getting to.
Oh, and how you can apply it to the real world.
Yeah, I don't think that. Yeah, I just...
It's a documentation, a representation, not an
it's
analog
not,
to relate to the reality.
Like you mentioned, you can relate it to the real world, but I don't see a whole lot of value in doing that.
I mean, it's also the easiest talking point. Like, look, I should have jumped on this bandwagon like years ago because, geez, I could actually be rolling in some money and I could be like doing some minor hot takes on Twitter and just being able to like, yeah, man, I screwed up.
Yeah, like I just feel like this whole video is nothing. Like there's nothing of substance here. It's just the same thing, and this is a common issue I have with Mother's Basement's content. Is it's mostly just nothing. But anyway, we're getting close to cancer, I think. Hopefully, so we're almost halfway through the video, and we still haven't gotten to the topic of the thumbnail. So. Let's go.
And the Cancer arc, which has a much more sympathetic and nuanced central antagonist, strange as that may sound. Indeed, a lot of fans reacted to last week's episode with surprise at how effective the show was at getting us to empathize with one of the worst diseases known to man. And yes, to an extent, that can be chalked up to some obvious writing tricks. Anytime we see a character as a scared little child, we're naturally going to be a little more inclined to take their side. It's like we're hardwired to protect and raise our young or something. But looking past that, I think it's pretty telling that the author chose to paint cancer in particular in such a sympathetic light in the first place, and that it ends up working so well. I mean, as a metaphor, it holds up. Cancer cells are as much a part of your body as blood cells and platelets, albeit a less adorable part, not foreign invaders like viruses or bacteria. From an educational standpoint, differentiating cancer from viruses and bacteria in this way makes a lot of sense. But that doesn't explain why the show goes for such a tragic angle when they could make it comedic. There's a lot about Cancer's experience as a character that has the potential to resonate really strongly with a lot of viewers. In a world where literally everyone around him has a clear and defined purpose, he has none. And it's due to factors entirely outside his control. He ends up being a literal drain on everyone around him, whether he wants to or not, and is marked for cold-blooded execution as a result. And while that last part hopefully doesn't apply to too many people watching this show, I think a lot of people can relate to the sense of purposelessness and isolation brought on by not having a clear career path or a job at all. I know that when I was young,
Again, it's just relate it to real world.
I'm explaining what's happening on screen. I have no real point about this.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought okay, so I've never watched this fuckboy in the past because every time I see his like thing pop up in my recommended feed, like I see his little cartoon doodle of himself, and I'm like, man, I hate that he exists. But this has been like, man, no wonder this is advertiser friendly. He's not saying anything. Like this is like watching just somebody read out the news. It's like
watching like bland bread, like just on the table. Like,
well,
it's just
let's throw something to make it more interesting. Instead of saying Cancer is being portrayed as someone who doesn't know what he should do in his life, ask, well, why is he portrayed in such a way? But just stating what is happening, anybody can do that. It is rather boring. Asking the question, why is he being portrayed in such a way, and could we relate something that to the real world? Could this be a sudden hint to the NEET population, the hikikomoris of Japan, to find a purpose in life?
Well, the author wants them killed. That's basically its takeaway. No, it's like old people in Japan. The author is just like really, he's had enough.
Yeah. So instead
I'm joking, of course.
Because you're on point. You're on point because that's all Mother's Basement has done. He's just been saying, "This is what's happened. This is what it's doing, and this is how it relates to real life," and not asking the actual important question, which is why. Why is cancer? Why did the author decide to make cancer sympathetic?
Why is the society of Cells of the Work at all constructed in such a way? Well, because it reflects Japanese culture. But why did some elements of Japanese culture and not others?
It's so surface level that anybody with like an IQ in the triple digits would be able to watch the show on their own and like get
Oh.
what's happening. I don't know. I don't know who this video is for. It can't be for the people
It's-
who watch the show.
It's for Jeff's ad revenue, lot. That's what it's for. it's for his ad revenue. But anyway, we're almost done. Like we're at 7 minutes, so let's see if we can wrap this one up.
And searching for work, I felt like an absolute failure compared to everyone around me who had their
Oh, see now
Well,
he's related.
let's not get ahead of yourself, Jim.
See,
You're still a failure.
I am cancer.
Now what he's doing is he's, instead of relating it to the real world, he's relating it to himself, which again could be interesting if you were doing a video like about your own personal struggles and your own personal, like, you know, in relation, using like the story of cancer and cells at work as like a framing device to be able to tell your story. But that's not what he's doing. He's not making that video.
Well,
he's making a different video.
He is saying that he is cancer.
Yeah, I guess that's the best takeaway from this entire fucking video, is that Mother's Basement is cancer. Alright, let's keep going.
shit figured out and a proper place in life set for them. As someone who now looks like one of those people, from the outside at least, I am well aware that that's not the case, and basically nobody has their shit together, but I still remember that feeling, and it got me hard. And there are large groups in our society that shun and hate those who don't contribute, even if they probably wouldn't go around murdering them. Hopefully. But beyond that, I think that Cancer's mentality strikes a chord with an even wider group than his experience. Because the thing that sets him apart from all of the other cells that we see in the show is kind of the same thing that sets us apart from them. The cells are rigid conservationists, all working toward a common goal of keeping the body around them alive, and as a species, we don't really work that way. If you track that metaphor in the other direction and think of
He's calling himself cancer. That's my only takeaway. He's calling himself cancer.
Okay, so now we're getting into environmentalism. Like, what? Like,
Continue, because we should probably like actually finish this in a reasonable time
is
next
a
time
giant
around.
organism that we all play a part in sustaining, an idea that has been brought up in both philosophy and science, although it's got some flaws in it as a model. Well, we're not doing the best job of keeping it alive. In big groups, we consume resources, release toxins, and expand
Oh, we are
that
cancer.
we know aren't sustainable, mostly to compete with other groups who we should be working with to keep us all alive. In cells at work terms, it's kind of like if our stomach was constantly at odds with our spleen. And that is making...
the problem with this is that the competition in real life is what is driving innovation. When there is no competition, there is no innovation, because what's the point? If everyone was working together outside of the end goal of just improvement, right? There's no reason to make something better than what it already is.
There is some, of course, not to go overly about the advantages of capitalism and all the other systems and forms between. I
wasn't even gonna.
Yeah, but there is, of course.
I know that's what he's getting at.
Yeah, but there is, of course, innovation is fine and all, but innovation doesn't really care about the long-term effects of most things. Which is
He's trying to make the assumption that all life is about living in harmony with and sustaining your environment, and it's like, no, like life's about, because the environment is constantly working against you, how to survive in an adversarial environment.
It's really not a comparable analogy. It's really not.
It's also
Again,
very
what's this analogy for?
It's a very
Who's this
rose-colored.
analogy for?
It's also it's a very rose-colored view of nature and animals. Because if an animal
This actually annoys me more than Pedantic, because at least Pedantic had some spice in her.
It's because he holds communist views.
yeah,
Yeah, but at least Pedantic was upfront about this and like presented things in a way that
Yeah,
was that worked.
that's one thing I'll give Zarya and Pedantic. They're at least honest about what their propaganda
Well,
is.
I don't think that Mother Basements really has a propaganda.
God, it almost
really-
feels like it. I wish he did
No.
because it would make it more interesting. I wouldn't actually be bored.
Yeah, but I want to say, if an animal, whatever animal, comes across another animal that he can eat every day with no repercussions, oops, suddenly the animal he was eating dies. Oops, that was my entire diet. Well, they'll all
Oops.
just go extinct too. That happens constantly in nature.
Yeah, I don't understand what he's. Let's keep going. We're almost there.
Yeah.
Our world's sick, at least if you believe the 97%
struggle.
of scientists who say that global warming is a man-made thing. And we
Oh,
need
fuck's sake.
all those groups to work together.
Are we really doing this?
Well-
Are we really gonna do?
Here's
Bring
the
in the
thing: it's not about making the world. I hate the idea that we're making the world sick. No, we're making the world a less comfortable place to live for us. The world's gonna be fine. It's actually been through several instances where like one species completely and utterly changed the environment. Go look up the Coniferous
mean-
collapse.
And this is the thing, right? Is I don't the amount of people that actually deny climate change, I reckon, is very fucking low. The issue is that there is the debate of exactly how much of an effect we are having versus how much of an effect we can actually do to stop it.
Oh,
Right?
yeah, no,
Yeah,
we're
well,
definitely
the
having
most-
an effect.
The,
but
of-
We have, yeah, that's the thing, right? There's no debate about the fact that we're having an effect. Like we are having an effect. The question is, can our effect actually manage to mitigate what's happening?
well,
Because-
the
because
discussion here is somewhat more evolved in another way. Basically, we have to stop climate change. The question is not how much. The question is who should pay and how much.
Yeah, yeah. there
my
you
problem my problem with this is that it's a very poor metaphor because a natural system on a larger level isn't quite the same as a bodily system. God,
Yeah,
this is
it
the
do-
most milquetoast thing I can think of.
Yeah,
Jesus,
yeah, it
people
doesn't-
watch this guy.
go. How many views does this video have? Do we know? Well, we'll look afterwards.
After.
But like, it's like, yeah, I don't get why he's making this now into a climate change video. Like, it's not something that Cells at Work can teach us. Like, Cells at Work is not going to teach us to be better to the environment. If anything, Cells at Work is going to teach us to save the platelets, right? Like, that's
Take care of
it'll
your
make
body.
Okay, so
Yeah.
bad news. This has roughly 350,000 views, and
how
oh
does
no.
God, he does shit with his tagging and his algorithms and all this other shit to make these videos do really well, because he's of the MatPat school of YouTube, right? Like he does a bit of that algorithm fuckery.
Yeah,
But
but
no,
no,
it-
Pat makes decent things.
I don't watch him anymore. I used to watch him, but it's like, yeah,
Should we finish the video because
Yeah,
we
yeah,
got the main
let's-
points, the main thesis.
yeah. Let's.
we
We
got
got
us-
3 minutes. We got 3 minutes left. I wanna
Can
see if
he
I'm
make a point?
yeah
on a solution because on an individual level we tend to prioritize our own immediate comfort, safety, freedom, and happiness in roughly that order over making sure that we're only consuming our fair share or preventing basically any
Oh,
threats that
fuck
we don't
off.
think are about to immediately kill us, even if intellectually we know better. And though I can attest to personally driving to a lot of places where I really ought to be taking transit, eating a lot of beef even though I know that cow farts are a big source of greenhouse gas, it's true, look it up.
Well, it's fucking hypocrite then. Stop.
reminds me of that comic. Oh, you live in the one that's like the one with the guy that's like, oh, you have an iPhone, you can't complain about the system, like that kind of thing. But it's like what do you like? What do you expect's going to happen? Do you think that not eating beef is just going to stop beef farming? Like, do you think that the $1 billion? I know about this because I'm a Kiwi, by the way, and 90% of our shit is like farming, right? Like, do you think that New Zealand is going to stop farming beef and go broke because we don't have any other like source of income just because you stop eating beef, Mother's Basement?
Well,
Like, it's not how that
the
works.
thing more of it, the thing here is it's more relatives being made of if you eat like less, and they give out some number, you save on a yearly basis like 1 million liters of water and 1 million of this. That's how they get you. You say if you just eat until this level about, then you'll save this much water, and that's a lot. And
The idea is that you're trying to lower demand, but like a small aside, you're kind of, from what you just said, is New Zealand like in like a Canada situation where you're relying on one export to not go like third world?
It's mostly we have other exports and we have other farming related stuff. Like a lot of it's farming. Like I believe the top exports is beef, lamb. What else is there? Wool is another one. Trying to remember like what the list was. Tourism's a big one. We get a lot of money from that, but the vast majority of our stuff comes from exporting farm products, like albeit fruits or beef, mostly beef. Like beef is the big one, but the issue here is that I don't think that people like even like it's the issue that I have with veganism. Everyone was vegan like now, like just switched right to stop eating animal products, right? What's going to happen to all of these animals that are still alive?
Go extinct, like that.
Yeah, because these animals are animals that we have bred over generations and generations of generations to be dependent on us in a way that so that like we have a kind of a mutual relation. It's like with sheep, right? If you don't shear a sheep, you get if you Google Shrek the sheep, that's what happens to a sheep if it doesn't get sheared. The wool just keeps growing. It doesn't stop growing. And then they die.
The answer, of course, the answer is that you put them in a big zoo.
Yeah, we'll just have giant zoos with cows and sheep.
Well, then if you just cut down the amount of cows in the world to 1,000 or 10,000 or something, and
to make an EFAP reference, we just need to start farming rhinos for their milk.
Yeah. Well, we will have our lab-grown meat and all that kind of stuff.
I've been hearing about that. I would like to try some of that, but I'm not.
Well,
I reckon it would be interesting to try, but
the price, just for the fun of it, the price went from like a couple of years ago, 3-5 somewhere. The price was like $1 million for one piece of meat, and now it's 50. So it's going the right way.
I heard that Burger King was going to start offering what are they called? They're called the Impossible Burgers.
Vegetarian burgers. Yeah, those are.
No. It's not vegetarian. It's like, it is vegetarian, but it's like a lab grown, beef substitute that uses a whole bunch of fancy shit. I know they have like coconut fat or something in it.
Yeah, there are loads of plant extracts that makes it very much taste and look and whatever texture like meat. So we're going way off the video for 1 second. 1 second. So you got two ideal schools of thoughts. One is lab grown meat. That's going to happen rather soon. You got on a free schools of thought. You got meat replacements. That is plant stuff that is basically that tastes and feels and looks the same as meat. And you got vegetarian stuff that is just make it look like it, but it is completely different. Like just put some greens into it and it tastes different, but who knows?
Further down the line, you can also just have cattle grazing and farming on like orbital facilities or something like that, because then
Just
you don't
put
have
them
to
in
worry about
space.
all the.
Space
Oh no, that's a
cows.
legitimate thing. Yeah, no, that's a legitimate thing. If you ever played any of the X games, they actually have a type of beef farms
Oh,
that
that's
you can like
great.
establish. Yeah, it's great.
Just space farm. I love that idea. Just space farms.
Yeah. Well, let's see how we can save the planet.
Yeah, but let's come on, Mother's Basement. What else can we do to save the planet? Let's
And using plastic utensils to avoid doing dishes because I'm just a lazy piece of garbage. This
Jesus
doesn't have to
Christ.
be a
What a
What?
horrible
Who-
person.
Really?
Hang on a minute. Who the fuck uses plastic utensils to avoid doing dishes? What is? Who? That is the most
At
American
Party,
thing.
sure. Yeah,
That
that
is
is
the
a pretty
most-
American thing.
That
yeah.
is the most American thing. And Mother's Basement's Canadian, by the way. That is the most.
So what the hell? He
Ameri-
doesn't have the excuse.
Yeah, that's the most retarded. I'm going to use that word because it's my word, right? That is the most retarded thing I have ever heard in my life. That is the most. Who does that?
But
Who
you
uses
just
plastic?
even if you're in a small student apartment, you can just run some hot water over it, scrub it a few times, and
You can just clean the plastic utensil.
These are the type of
Exactly.
These are the type of people that need Jordan Peterson in their life to tell them to wash their balls.
like that is fucking crazy. The concept of people doing that had never crossed my mind, and it's like, no, why
you're
would you
way cheaper out just buying a bunch of dishes or not dishes.
just
Plates.
buy a dishwasher. For
Just
fuck's
buy
sake.
some plates, some good old stone plates from some shed somewhere along the road where you got like 50 from plates for like $5, and bam, you're set.
Like, I don't. Oh my god, let's try and finish this. off.
about the climate. Think of how many times you've put off work to or past the last minute and ended up dealing with a much harder workload as a result. How many times you've skipped out on a checkup at the dentist or doctor because, hey, you feel fine right now. How fucking hard it is to make yourself eat healthy and go to the gym, even though you know that it will give you more time to live and make that time more enjoyable overall. And that's just stuff that personally affects us. We're not wired to think about personal long-term consequences, let alone how the small negative impact that we and everyone else have on the world around us can compound to make all of our lives miserable or even kill us way down the line. I think that's why worlds like the one in Cells at Work, when framed just a little differently, feel so
Frame
horrifyingly dystopic.
When you frame it outside of the context of the show.
Yeah.
Well,
He's trying.
I mean-
he's trying to smokescreen the fact that he low key wants a fascist society.
Well, I said it wrong because framing it outside of the context of the show can be very interesting. But this is just
Yeah, that's the thing.
forcing a square into a round hole, to
Like, you
borrow
can't-
in a British.
Like, here's the thing.
So what did this teach us? He hasn't gotten to the point. What is it teaching us?
Yeah, like, you could make this video work, but he hasn't framed it in the correct
This
way
is a
to make it
vlog.
work.
This is a vlog.
There's like
he's just-
nothing. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. All right, let's
Well,
3 minutes.
yeah.
3 minutes.
And then
3
I'll
minutes.
give, yeah,
And
three-
then we can go off as long as we want. So 3 minutes. So let's go.
Because while they may very well make the world as a whole work like a well-oiled machine, those of us who don't fit neatly into the machinery feel at risk of being tossed aside. And all of us have at least a few rough edges that make us less than ideal cogs. But is it any better to just be like a random assortment of gears that doesn't do anything and slowly gathers rust? Gosh, I'm really mixing my metaphors right now. It's a symbolic jambalaya up in here. And that's because here's where the metaphors kinda break down. We're not
Well, he didn't know
cogs.
about
We're
being
not
useless.
single
Wait
cells
a minute.
serving a singular purpose. We're
What the fuck was the point of the video?
The point is that he's a useless piece of
No,
shit that
no,
uses
no, 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 no,
single-use
no, no.
plastics
No,
constantly
no.
to
We're
avoid
going back.
washing the
We're
dishes.
going back. We're going back. I want to
No.
hear. I want to hear him say that again. I want to hear him say that again because I need to be sure that he fucking just said
A
that.
random assortment of gears that doesn't do anything and slowly gathers rust. Gosh, I'm really mixing my metaphors right now. It's a symbolic jambalaya up in here. And that's because here's where the metaphors kinda break down. We're not cogs. We're not single cells serving a singular purpose. We're thinking creatures, and while it might not be in our nature to think about the big picture and put our world ahead of ourselves, it is in our nature to adapt, even if it takes a lot of hard work and introspection to do so. I am not happy with how easily I could relate to a character who exists to expand and consume without restraint until he kills everything around him. And while I wouldn't be happy leading the regimented, restless life of one of the other cells either, I'm gonna try to let that uncomfortable feeling motivate me toward being a bit more conscientious and living a more sustainable life. If it's left you feeling the same, I'll leave some links in the doobly-doo to resources that can help you do that. On the other hand, if what you're feeling right now is frustration that I Trojan horsed gosh dang politics into this video about cute cells doing...
Don't worry, it wasn't politics that annoyed me.
Keep going.
He wasn't-
Just keep going. Let's finish this fuck boys
Consider
video.
this. Even if you don't agree with what I've taken away from this show, it's a testament to its quality that I can take away anything at all. The mark of a really
What?
great piece of edutainment like Cells at Work is that it functions both as an educational tool and a work of art. And that means it can be useful both in helping us to understand its subject matter and in helping us to understand ourselves through how we react to it. This show has managed the impressive task of teaching us and making us feel things at the same time. And that's pretty amazing.
And
Let me know in the
that's
comments
something you
below what
haven't
other
accomplished.
edutainment anime or edutainment
And that's something you very much haven't accomplished because I have nothing to take away from this besides the fact that you use single-use plastics as God. That is such a douchebag thing. I'm from the South and I'm American. I shouldn't be. God.
What was the point of he completely invalidated. He made our point for us by saying that his own metaphors were bullshit.
Well,
it broke
the
down.
problem is that he said it was all fine, except we are not single purpose cogs in a machine. All the other metaphors are fine. There's so many problems with it.
God.
And I don't
my
care
God.
about his stupid environmentalist agenda. Of course, environment is important. No.
I don't
But-
even think a lot of that shit is even politics.
No, that's not my it's so just misplaced, so misconceived.
This is the intro to sociology class that nobody asked for.
Yeah, it's. God, I'm struggling to find anything to say that we haven't already said because it's just that bland. There's nothing. There's no substance here. There's no he doesn't make a point, and it feels to me like he just wanted an excuse to talk about environmentalism and self-help and getting out there and doing shit. That's all it feels like to me.
It was a ramble. It was a ramble, and
I've left this video with obviously the main takeaway, which is that Mother's Basement uses plastic utensils, but also,
just
yeah,
through that alone, we understand why he was harping on the point about cancer, because he secretly realizes that by doing things like that, he's cancer and should probably.
Well, I mean, yeah,
They were right from the beginning.
Yeah, I just don't have anything to add. It's so milquetoast and so just nothing here to talk about. I just don't have anything.
Well, let's
So I don't know if you-
for good measure, let's go from the beginning. He described the show. Maybe if you want to scrub with my recollection of the video.
Well, what I can do is I can go back to the beginning.
Yeah,
and then if you-
mute it and just skip forward approximately. I think what we're talking about. So yeah,
There we
we
go. So we're at the beginning now. So
Yeah,
I'll just
so-
I'll play it from the beginning and just let it run, and you talk.
its
yeah.
audience about the biological
can you
functions
mute
of the
it?
human body by recon.
Or
You
is
have to mute it on your
Oh,
end.
sorry. I'll just.
That's alright.
Wrong thingy.
Yeah, just set the volume all the way down to the lowest. It should mute it.
I have to do this, do that, go away. Full screen looks horrible in the video, but who cares?
Yeah, but what? Who cares? Yeah. All right, so
Alright,
you ready?
Yeah, I'm good. So
No sound. No sound.
no sound for me. It's fine.
All right, good.
So yeah, so this is Cells at Work. Skip forward 5 minutes.
So this is Cells at Work. He talks about Cells at Work. 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5
Cells
minutes. Now
Work,
he's comparing.
Yeah, so
Comparison to Psychopaths.
societies that are ruled with strict rules and with no real influence of your own. I don't know why it's here if it's ultimately about environmentalism. So what's the point of Psychopaths?
Talking about the sympathies of cancer.
Sympathy of cancer. He's what he. All right. Yeah. Well, why?
Hmm?
Well, I have a major issue now with if cancer is a sympathetic person because he has no purpose,
Mm-hmm.
but later cancer is bad because it's bad for the environment. Where does those two intersect?
Yeah,
where
because
does-
suddenly what I learned from this video and what I learned from Cells at Work is that I should be less tolerant towards people like him.
Oh my god, the conspiracy is true. They're all fucking. It's all part of the grand plan of the leftist YouTubers to get us
Yeah,
to
no,
become-
that's why he put in the thing about the Trojan horse later, because that's what the Trojan horse is.
It's a false flag.
It isn't lefty politics. He's trying to lead the audience into wanting to support like a right wing revival. That is the grand scheme. We put it together.
All right.
Yeah, but so
sympathies with cancer, and then we keep going, and then he talks about himself,
himself
yeah.
being cancer.
and then we go to the planet, and we're talking about us and humans, and
Humans are cancer.
humans are cancer, and then we got
should-
you are cancer because you relate to those things, and then we get to the point where he starts.
And then
talking
he
about
says,
the-
"I'm cancer again. I should stop being cancer."
and then there you go. And then that's stop.
He's
that.
very self-aware.
But yeah, so overly long explanation about what this Cells at Work is. If you're not going to talk about it anyway, why compare Cells at Work with Psychopaths if you're not going to compare the two societies and anything in any meaningful way?
He
Why would
drops like these comparisons and these metaphors, but he never extrapolates on them, and it's really annoying.
Yeah, why is sympathy? Why suggest you have a sympathy for cancer if you ultimately say cancer is not me but the humanity as a whole destroying the environment?
I think that what he was trying to do was like he was trying to make the case that we're being sympathetic towards this character. It's the reason we're sympathetic towards cancer in this show is because it reminds us of us because
Like there's no transition between the
I mean, maybe if you have a lot of self-guilt, it reminds you of
Yeah, but if you want to make the transition between we see ourselves in cancer, this, but consider but it may be a trope, but humans themselves are being described as cancer in regards to the environment. Ta-da! Link to that subject instead of no link now, and in the end you you personalize it again by saying, we are living from the environment without real consideration for the rest. So in the end, maybe we are right to sympathize with cancer. Bam.
So yeah, I don't, like I said, I don't really have anything else to say. I'm pretty much done with this video. I think that, you know, it's just, this is exactly what I kind of expected from Upper Spaceman, really. Just milquetoast nothing. I also find it funny how he presents himself in his the little like cartoon down there with his wife as a pope, and she's a demon. I find that
funny.
Find that slightly interesting.
Well, it's a funny
He drew his wife rather
contrast.
fat, didn't he?
What?
He drew